Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Two World Podcast. I'm one of your co hosts, Jacob, and I have with me today my other co host, who is.
I am Barney.
Something really interesting came out this past week, and for those who are interested in technology and gaming, they'll know that the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement trailer was released. And Barney knows this, and perhaps you, as our audience, have known this a little bit by following our videos that Barney and I enjoy gaming. I was a huge fan of the first Nintendo Switch, and I was an early adopter. I pre-ordered it the night it was announced from Walmart, and then it came March of 2017, and I was just so delighted to jump in right away. Well, now that they've announced a Switch 2, I've been thinking about, should I do that again? And what drove my decision the first time to take that plunge, and what might drive it again the second time? And so I thought it might be fun to record an episode about how we make financial decisions, big decisions, maybe about something as large as a car or a house, or even small purchases that are still considerable, like an electronic device or something like that. So that's our focus today. And just to get us started, Barney, when I proposed this topic to you, did you have any initial thought? Did it grab your interest? Do you find that you yourself go through a process of discernment whenever you want to buy something? And maybe we'll just start there.
Yeah, it was a really interesting topic. And I think really important, really relevant, especially when I think a lot of us try to live frugally as we can, or at least a bit of, trying to practice good stewardship. And I remember, especially coming from my background, when I mentioned to you one time about the old saying that my parents always repeated of use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. And how I remember you really appreciated that. And I thought, oh yeah, I heard that, so often growing up. Um, but there come times where you do, where you, of course, you don't want to have a life that's just so austere that you don't enjoy anything, but you do need to kind of rein yourself in sometimes and think about do why do we make these decisions? How do we make these decisions so that they make sense? Especially when we're married and we're responsible for those around us. Our spouses and our kids. Then we want to feel like everyone's on board and not feel like I made an impulse purchase that was something that maybe I regretted. Um, the notion of buyer's remorse comes to mind, and then with that, one of my favorite Oscar Wilde quotes comes to mind of the two greatest tragedies in life. One is not getting what you've always wanted, and the other is getting what you've always wanted. So,
Hmm. Mhm.
yeah, I think if we, it was such a great idea that you came up with, because there's really a lot that could or should go into making big, small purchases, and why. It's fascinating to think about the why we do these things, and so I'm excited to talk about it today.
Well, that's wonderful, Barney. I like that you mentioned a concept there, impulse buy or impulse purchase. And I guess as we get started, I want to think a little bit about that. Impulse is something that you feel very quickly and you act upon. Um, but I think most people have some type of safeguard in their brain that there's a certain dollar amount that they probably won't go above for an impulse purchase. So, for instance, for me, something like in the range of $20 to $50 could be an impulse buy, but something when you get to the $100 mark or above, that's getting into the range where I'm like, I need to run this by Katie, or I need to think about this longer, or both. Obviously, so that's a good idea. So and you mentioned when one is married, it's important to process financial things in general with one's spouse, just because with sharing a budget, sometimes it's not always clear what has been allocated for which purpose. So then, if an expensive console a certain month is purchased, that could dig into funds that were needed somewhere else. So, you know, so um, anyway, I kind of wondered if, like, for an impulse purchase, if I said mine is like in the 20 to 50 range, I mean, what would impulse range be for you?
I'm thinking of the safeguard that you have, and um, maybe it's from the time that I actually worked in retail or whatnot. But I think my safeguard is I think to myself, I know that these items are placed in a certain way on purpose, intentionally. And then so I think that kind of takes it out of me where I think, ooh, I really want this. But then I think, wait a minute, it's kind of there for a reason. And then that automatic is like my fail safe that like kind of lets me take a step back and think about whether or not it already starts the do I need this? Do I want this debate? But the funny thing is for me, with impulse purchases, I'm more likely to um, uh, purchase something, impulsively purchase something if it's for someone else.
Mm,
And then in that case, yeah, the if it's a special occasion, then the range of course would be higher. But if it's just like a daily thing, then the range is still, um, you know, probably even less than $5.
sure, that makes sense. For
Yeah.
I agree with you for a daily
Mm-hmm.
purchase,
Mm-hmm.
like a candy bar or a nice book, like a used
Mm-hmm.
book or something. But
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
So less than five for
Yeah.
a daily impulse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like if we're thinking of like someone's birthday or um like sending a care package or something like that, then yeah, it would be it's pretty easy to justify those things. And then this is interesting not to take us on too big of a tangent, but I used to do the Reddit gifts gift exchange, the Secret Santa, and I found myself very willing to buy gifts for people that I don't know, you know, and who also aren't sending me a gift. Someone else is probably, hopefully, sending me a gift, but these people I don't know, I've never met, and I just know a little bit about them from what they've written in their profile for the gift exchange. And I find myself, excited when they're interested in the same things I'm interested in. And then the things that I wish that I have, I'm really excited to give to them. But then when I think about getting it for myself, I was like, oh, I could never spend that much on me for that, that kind of thing. But then like someone says, oh, they're a big fan of board games. And I think right away, oh, I've always wanted to play that board game. And then say, get it ready, ship it and send it to them. And then, but I've always wanted to play that board game. But I think, oh, for myself, I don't know. I think it's just too much for a board game, So when we attach some kind of occasion or some kind of extra element to the notion of, either impulse buys or just shopping in general, then it's really it's a whole different kind of process that we go through for um, whether or not we should, buy something, I think. Have you felt the same way?
yeah, definitely. I enjoy getting things for friends. I've never done a Reddit type of gift exchange like that, but what an interesting idea. Typically, um, when I'm thinking of something like you're describing, it's normally for a friend or family member. And so I love the idea that you were willing to do that for somebody else that you didn't know, but that had a similar interest. So, yeah, I enjoy getting just a special gift that reminds me of someone. I'm willing to spend more for that. Like you said, with the shipping, with finding the item. And then for my friends that like similar things that I do too, I try to, yeah, give them things that I would enjoy or that I really especially think they would enjoy. So, yeah, that's a very good point that impulse buys can also be for other people. And sometimes our willingness to go that extra step for them is greater. So, yeah, I remember waiting at Walmart um, until midnight to buy the NES Classic Edition because it was so hard to find in stores. You had to
Ah.
find out like which stores had them and call ahead, make sure that they were releasing them at a certain
Mhm.
time, and then just wait in line and hope that they didn't run out before you got yours. And so that night, I did get one for me, but then I also got one. You were allowed to purchase two, and so I got one for my brother-in-law, and I remember being so excited to get give that to him. And then I did the same thing. They did. They had the same process for the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, and I waited in line till midnight to get that one too. Um, so, but it was also for my brother-in-law as well at that time. And so, yeah, when you have somebody else in mind, it can have so much more meaning for sure.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I love that. Well, that's good. And I'm glad that you clarified that there is a whole range for how our financial behavior from small to larger. And on day-to-day occurrences, we're probably thinking more on the smaller scale, but
Hmm.
every so often bigger things come around. So, have you noticed if Ayako's metrics for impulse purchases differ from your own? Do you have similar habits, or do you have a slightly different approach to weighing decisions around purchases?
Yeah, I wonder if this echoes similarly for you, but she's actually better at reining things in than I am. Like she is a very good sounding board for me. Sometimes there's something I get excited about. Like you say, like maybe there comes a case where you need to get something that's a little expensive, like a computer or something like that. And then um, if you're the one setting things up, then you kind of, when you get into all of the add-ons and whatnot, then especially since it's a big thing, you get into the region where I'm already spending, like this much money. So if I'm adding something that's like $100 onto it, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really raise it that high. And you think it would be nice to have this, either accessory or software or whatnot. But I needed a new computer just last year. And then I was careful to run things by her as I was going through the list of things that might add on. And then she was a very good sounding board of saying, well, maybe you don't really need that one, or don't you have something similar right now that might work as well? And then that I think it's that important check, like it helps you to check a little bit and think, oh yeah, you know what? I don't really need so many bells and whistles. I can very easily make do with what I have right now a little bit. And then when you do think back, when you do take a step back, you think, yeah, I really did save, quite a bit that on this, sure that the total is still a little high, but it could have been much higher. And then I think when you equate things, when you think, this dollar amount that I could have spent on this extra thing, what could it also be, on a different day, like that dollar amount, wow, it could be like like a few things of clothes that you need, or it could be a dinner out, or, a few dinners out or something like that. Then I think when you can kind of make a concrete connection with the money that we're spending, then it really helps you to see um, things in a little bit clearer light, and then think a little bit clearer about um, is this something I really need? And then figure out, get a bigger, clearer picture about the purchase as a whole, I think.
That's really interesting, Barney, and I can relate to that. I feel like Katie serves a similar role in my context and my relationship with her in being a sounding board. And I'll run questions by her like, oh, these are the new features for this item that I'm looking at, and this is why I want to get it. And then she will also say things like, is that particular feature needed, or do we have something already like this? I like what you shared there. Actually, I have a memory of when I visited you in 2019 where I feel like maybe um, this was lived out when I was in your home. And maybe I'll share it real quick and see if you remember it. But I think maybe you had brought chocolates back with you from your visit to the US, and you had extra chocolate, like more than maybe you needed. And Ayako had gone online and realized that those chocolates could be sold for a decent profit, the extra ones that you didn't really need. And so while I was there, she put them up for sale, and you guys were able to, I don't know if it was like Amazon or which site, but you were able to find buyers and get a good return for those extra chocolates you didn't need. And I thought, wow, that was like a really um like really money conscious decision that would was wise to make the most out of your resources. And she, you know, was quick and willing to do that. And so those types of things bring extra income in for the family. So do you remember
Mhm.
that when I was there?
Yeah, I think I do. And probably it was probably my impulse purchase in the first place that led me to buy those. But the other kind of neat thing is that that story made me think. I don't know about you, but it made, and probably in your case with me, Katie, it made me think of one of the last chapters of Proverbs, where describing how what a wonderful, this real dutiful, skilled wife is, who, like works, she spins and sews and works all day and dresses her children and, these wonderful clothes, and is such a good steward of her household. It made me think that when we talked about that, when we were talking about our favorite parts of the Bible, and yeah, boy, what a great, wonderful gift, wives really can be in this way.
Absolutely. It feels
Mhm.
like making a big financial decision alone is a lot more intimidating than doing it with a partner, with
Mhm.
a spouse. And I guess in particular too, if you've found a way over the years to partner well. I know sometimes if the philosophical approaches to spending are really different, then it can be kind of a burden for some couples to make big purchases. But I think when it's possible for couples to kind of learn to complement each other and help each other out, then that's like super beneficial. And so
Mhm.
I definitely feel that that is a good thing. Well, would it be all right if we moved on for a moment to this whole topic of the Nintendo Switch and maybe
Mhm.
use it as a test case for like how do we work
Mm.
through financial decisions? And maybe you can help me. You can be my sounding board in this moment
Okay.
for this current decision. So I'd like to hold up the Nintendo Switch that I have.
Mhm.
This is called the Nintendo Switch OLED because it has a little bit larger display than the launch edition. And this display is an OLED display, so it's a little bit more vibrant.
Mm.
And uh, I noticed when I had my original Switch, I was very happy with it. But then Katie and I went into a Target, and Katie does not normally say much about video game consoles, but we walked by the display case for the new Switch OLED, and they had a model out on the floor and a little station that you could try out. And she said, "Boy, those colors sure are vibrant." And I thought, oh, Katie noticed that. That is something that is noteworthy because she doesn't say much about these types of things. And so I started scheming. How can I um, make it to
Mm.
purchase a new Switch
Mhm.
where I can't own two Switches because that I would
Mhm.
be excessive. But and thanks to you, Barney, I don't know if we've ever mentioned this to our audience, but you purchased my old Switch.
Oh yeah.
So then you made it possible for me to get the new one. So thank you very much for that. But
Mhm.
uh, but this OLED Switch is 7 inch screen. It has a 7 inch
Mhm.
screen, and the new
Mhm.
Switch has an 8 inch screen. So when we were
Oh.
before the show began, Barney and I watched the launch trailer, and what happened is they had a current generation Switch, and then all of a sudden it went and it grew in the center, so you saw the larger screen,
Uh-huh.
and then the Joy Cons came off. You know, on these older Switches, you push a button on the back, and then
Mhm.
it releases the Joy-Con and it comes out. And so the Joy-Cons came out, and then they too stretched,
Right.
and they were bigger. And then you saw the Switch turning around, and it was highlighting all these new features around it.
Mm.
So it went on the top, and there's actually now a USB port, a USB-C port on the top, and it has
Right.
a different kickstand. Like this one comes out in the back like this. And the new Switch does that too, but its kickstand, instead of being a large flap, is more like a traditional
Oh yeah.
curve stand. Um, and then it has a number of other features, but the main things are the larger screen, and then the connection of the Joy Cons
Mhm.
occurs magnetically. So while these, pardon me, I keep hitting my mic, while these slide in through the rails, the new one comes straight and then
Yeah.
clips on magnetically. And so it looks kind of fancy. I'm really happy with this current Switch. I I like its size. The screen's large enough for me. I like how the Joy-Cons work, but I know that this new Switch will be more powerful. and that it's going to have features that I can't anticipate yet that probably will
Mm.
be interesting. They did show the Switch Joy-Cons on a table, and they were
Mm.
moving along the table, and some really smart, observant tech analysts noticed that they seem to have mouse functionality. So, like
Mhm.
a mouse that you could use in a game for precision type of aiming and things like that. So, we'll
Oh,
have to see if that mouse sensor, how they, employ that in new games. But I guess my question is, when the first Switch came out, that we didn't have anything like it.
oh
That
yeah.
the Wii U, you could play on a second screen. If you were in proximity to the base console, you could sit on your couch and play, or maybe if you were lucky, you could go upstairs if it was close enough to the
Mm.
base unit and play. But you couldn't take it on the go. With the Switch, you pull it out of your dock and you can take it anywhere just like you would any portable handheld. And so I really love that feature. And also, the Wii U struggled with the library of games. It had a very small library of games. So when the Switch came out, it's like, oh, there seems like there's going to be potential for a lot more games because the system seems like it's going to get a lot more traction. And it has. Now there are thousands and thousands of games. So I feel like it's a little bit different than when this first Switch came on the scene. Now that Switch 2 is coming on the scene, I have already have a console that's portable that plays all
Mm.
these games that I like. And so the part of me that loved being an early adopter before is like intrigued by this new, you know, console that's launching. But at the same time, I'm really satisfied with what I currently have. So
Mm.
it's hard to know, like, should, you know, I could, it is backwards compatible, they're claiming.
Yeah.
So my current library of digital and physical games will be usable on the new console. So in that sense, I could, sell my current one to get the new one. Um, but there was one little note, a caveat that said some games might not have full functionality or
Oh
might
right.
not be fully compatible with the new one. So I don't know how much of my library that would affect. So, but anyway, I'm just trying to weigh that decision. I don't think it makes sense just to be an early adopter just because, I did it last time. Like this is a different
Yeah.
situation, but it
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
tempting to
Yeah.
jump in early because a lot of times with these types of devices, they sell out very quickly, and
Hmm.
then it really is quite a while till they're in stock again, and that
Right.
you have the opportunity to buy if you don't pre-order. So,
Yeah.
it's tempting. So I don't know. Can you be my sounding board? What are you hearing? What are you thinking? How would you do it if you were in this
Hmm.
situation? That type of thing. So this
Yeah.
is
I'm glad
our
that.
case study right now. So
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I'm glad that you mentioned the story that you told about Katie noticing the OLED one because if you weren't going to when you talked about today's topic, if you weren't going to mention that story, I was going to because yeah, it was really a nice surprise and yeah, and it benefited me too. I was really glad because in my case like I don't know if like small, however your old Barney was, was just a little bit hurt when the SNES came out, and then I realized, whoa, you mean I can't play if I want to play these games now? I have to have two systems. I can't just play my old games on this new one again somehow. Why doesn't that work? I didn't quite understand. And then so um I never really got so crazy about everything. I know that my friends, they maybe similar to you, they waited, they searched store after store after store and waited, in line and were disappointed multiple times when the Wii came out. Um, and then when they finally got it and then talked about it, boy, it really sounded amazing. But I never got one, And then I got the funny thing is I got the Wii U, and then the next month I got accepted into graduate school, and then so I never had any time to play that. And then I didn't even know about the Switch, because Yuma was asking me the other day. He's like, who's older? Am I older than the Switch, or is the Switch older than me? And I thought, oh, the Switch is must be way older than you. And then, he was born in 2016. And then we looked it up. It's like, oh, wow, you are older than the Switch. So um, I don't know. For me, for some reason, I thought, well, I didn't understand the hype for the Switch, why it was so appealing. But then, yeah, like you said, when when I had the chance to see it and to play it, then I thought, wow, that is really neat. Um, and and then the fact that yeah, it's so portable and powerful. But then then I often see, and this is not uncommon, but and that this is just my choice, but our family's choice. But I often see, families that have more than one Switch per person, and then sometimes my kids say, why can't we do that? And I say I just say I'm sorry, but we can't do that. We can play it on the TV, and I don't want it to be an individual thing. I want it to be a thing that we play together. Um, and then so that fact that it so easily and smoothly plays on the TV was was like the tipping point for me for why I thought, yeah, it would be nice to have it. And then probably like you say, with there were so many features that I didn't even realize about it. There's so many nice things that it does. And so I'm very, very glad that I had the chance to get it, thanks to you. Um, but but and then watching the trailer together, that was really neat. And because forever the kids and I have been wondering, why is the charging port on the bottom instead of on the top? It's such a pain. And I'm tired of like holding it and worrying about like bending the cable while it's like pressed up against, whatever, because it's in the way. So that was a great feature to put that on the top, the USB-C on the top. Um, but I think this whole topic made me think back to a lesson that I didn't teach, but my two friends taught at the medical school. One of them is a great Japanese guy, and he actually got his master's in music history. And so, and then his partner was is a doctor, a physician in the UK, and his partner said, these were first year students, and medic. I think I've mentioned, but just remind medical school in Japan starts right after, possibly right after high school. So, 18, 19-year olds. A majority of students were. And he said it's really important for them to grab the concept of heuristics, kind of like a flow chart, kind of, intentional decision making, because the doctors really need to know heuristics well, when they're making diagnosis, if it's A or B, then if it's A, go here. If it's B, go here. Or if you're still not sure, then go to C, and they did a wonderful class about, applying these to everyday things. Like the one teacher said, how do I know what to eat in the morning, for breakfast? Well, A, do I feel, do I have enough time? Then yes, then go to here, then, B, does my wife, A1, does my wife also want oatmeal? No, okay, then I don't make oatmeal. Or yes, then yeah, I'll make oatmeal. So I think that we have to have our own heuristic too for purchases like this. And um, I don't want to. I'm kind of a stick in the mud kind of fuddy duddy kind of guy anyway. So I would see, just based on uh um the trailer, I would, my just feeling is just to wait, because I'm so satisfied with the current Switch as it is. And because I know that eventually I'll get around to playing, eventually one day I'll get the Switch to and playing those games. But I think to myself that with my kids, again, we often buy games that are used or wait until they're on sale. I keep telling my kids, let's put it on the list, put it on the list, and then when I see it's on sale, then we usually, if it's a significant sale, then probably you probably have a sense of what how much is too much for a game, right? And then I've never felt like, ooh, I wish I had purchased that game sooner. Um, but so in my case, we will probably wait unless like the kids find a reason to go for it earlier, or if it's a gift or something like that. But um, and they had since my kids haven't been pressuring me so much, then I think that's another reason why it seems like they're happy, they're satisfied too. But then eventually, probably more and more games will be just for the Switch 2, and then that will probably be the tipping point in my case. Um, but first, I still have a few games, a few things that I want to get done with on the regular Switch first. So, but yeah, like you say, I think since this one is similar in a lot of the outstanding features that made the Switch, this carries over the same basic amazing features. So, like you say, like from the Wii U to the Switch was such a huge step. Then that really made sense to be like first in line to get that to get going on that and experience how what a big change it was. But then just for me too, that there's everything does really look appealing um about Switch 2, but then I also kind of know what the price point might be. And then that helps me to take a step back too and think, maybe it's okay to wait. I don't think it'll ever be on sale. Um, but or it'll be a real minimal sale. But one day I'll get it. But I'm gonna wait. It's just me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think your logic is sound. I mean, when you talk about the propensity of games too, when it gets to the place where there's many titles that you're interested
Hmm.
in already on this system, that is probably quite a few years down the road, I'm guessing. So, and by that point, a lot of the software library would be a lot bigger. There would be more games that you could get at a more affordable price at that point. Um, for early adopters, sometimes, like when the Switch first came out, there actually weren't a lot of titles available for it. So it was a little bit sparse at first. And since it wasn't backwards compatible, you couldn't play any of your former library with it. You just had to kind of wait for titles to be added. So, you know, the thing about it though that was interesting, and this probably goes into the psychology of marketing and impulse buying, there is a little bit of a sense of spectacle with the launch of something new. And in being an early adopter, there's a sense of experiencing something with a group of people who are really excited about it and talking about it online. And so I think about like for children, sometimes if they go to school,
Uh,
let's say other kids are playing a certain game that just came out,
mhm,
there's a certain social sense of like, oh, we're all playing this game at the same
mhm,
time. And we know there's like it's kind of, I don't know if you want to say a group think or a sense of like excitement in maybe it's like a fad, like, everybody's into it at the same time. And so that's the only downside. I think it's good to wait financially. Like you get better deals, but sometimes you miss out on some of the group excitement, so to speak. But it's sometimes that's overrated or it doesn't matter that much too. Like it just depends. And like for the Switch 2, I don't know that it's necessarily going to be quite the same as it was with the first Switch. And even that, it's not the most important thing, but it was fun at times to be like, oh, to tell people to be like a Switch apologist, to be like,
mhm.
this thing's amazing. You want to see it? And people be like, oh my goodness, I've never seen this in the wild. Like, let me see yours. And
Yeah.
like it was kind of fun when I came to visit you in 2019 when we went to see IUHW. Like we sat
Uh-huh.
out at one of the tables and
Hmm.
played it,
Hmm.
and it was kind of fun because, just not a lot of people were doing that at that point yet. And
Hmm.
so it's kind of fun to be on the early end. But anyway, I like your logic. I think it's very sound and it makes sense for you. And it's actually pretty convincing for me too. Like I think I might wait. But there's that little part of me
Hmm.
that's still kind of like, but it could be so interesting. But I think waiting makes a lot more sense. And then the other thing too is sometimes like when you talk about used video games, like video game resale stores sometimes have trade-in policies. So either former games or even systems, sometimes you can get a decent trade-in value for in-store credit. And so That's what I did when I got the Switch OLED. I had
Mhm.
items to trade in. So you purchased my old one, which really helped me a lot, and then I traded in some items, and I got a used Switch OLED, which also, and I bought it on my birthday, and they gave a special birthday discount. So
Oh,
with all
wow.
that combined, it could get me
Yeah.
across the finish line.
Yeah.
And so maybe with the Switch 2, if I wait till it's been out a while and then there's a used one, I could do something similar, trade in, have a, get a birthday discount or something like that. uh, w-
Yeah, if it's a special occasion like that, and then if you also get the bonus of a little bit of a discount, then I think that that always pushes it over the edge for me too.
yeah, that helps for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'm trying to think. We've walked through the Switch as a um, test case. So it's like
Hmm.
one applies the question like, um, if I delay purchasing this item, like, and I eventually get it, I can still, do the things that I want to do with it. It's just it would be at a different price point, and I might have missed out on some of the initial excitement, but I'm still getting to the experience. And so that's a very powerful argument for big purchases. Sometimes buying something used or waiting till it goes on sale a bit can save us money. And so that's battling that instant gratification mindset, which
Oh
which
yeah.
that's a helpful thing to do. Um, I like that, and I think there is a certain scarcity mindset with electronics, and it's normally not logical in the long run, but in the short term, it can seem very overwhelming. Like if somebody knows with almost out of shadow of a doubt that this console is going to sell out,
Mm.
there's almost like this pressure, like, well, I need to pre-order so that I get one. But it's like if you wait, that these companies aren't going to stop producing them. That they'll
Yeah.
keep producing them, and
Yeah.
then and the other thing is too with scalpers. Sometimes if you miss an opportunity, it's tempting to pay an elevated price to a scalper, but it's like no, if you wait, you can get it at the retail price eventually once supply catches up with demand. So that's another thing too that in general, most of the time, if we just calm down and and wait, like when the NES Classic Edition came out, I mentioned waiting in line. I was waiting in line for a refresh of the stock. I missed the first one, and then like I was like really tempted um, to buy it on eBay from a scalper. From scalpers, it's like no, that's just too expensive. And then I heard that Nintendo was releasing another round, another batch, and then retailers started announcing when they were going to sell them, and that's when I was like, okay, this is the way to go. So it's like um, part of a big purchase is not just do I want it, but do I have to have it now or could I get it later? So I'm glad you brought that in
Mhm.
to the conversation. And I also like how you made it a decision that wasn't just about you, but about your kids. Like you brought it into the sense of like, how does this product could it impact the fun I have with my family? And I like that. I agree. That's my favorite thing about the Switch is playing it with
Mhm.
family. So
Mhm.
so the family probably doesn't mind that much that we would be playing on the first Switch for a few more
Right.
years before jumping to the
Right.
second Switch. They're not gonna mind. Like in the launch trailer they had some images of Super Mario or pardon me Mario Kart 9. I don't know if you
Mhm.
noticed that in the trailer. So it looked really fun, but
Mhm.
Mario Kart 8 is still quite good. So,
Oh yeah.
it can probably hold us over until we decide down the road to get it switched to. So thanks, Barney. You really helped me work through that one. And I hope our audience, this might seem like maybe for some not the most relatable example, but hopefully you could see just like for the two of us working through something, it can be complex, but it's also kind of fun sometimes too to work through. Oh, well, this makes sense to me. I feel good about it. So
Mhm.
thanks for helping me with that. Are there any other examples that you want to give of big purchases that you've had to work through, or a story behind that before we close our episode?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, I do think actually just last year in the fall we needed to get uh we had a decision of fixing our old car, which was 12 years old, or and the it would have been pretty expensive, or going ahead and getting a new one. And thankfully the place that we go to, they know. my wife's family, her mom and dad, they've been going there for a while, and so they're very accommodating to us, and they gave us a loaner car, and it was a compact car, and at first it was so hard to drive. It was so hard to get used to the difference in size and space and everything, but then we got used to it, and then because we had it for more than a month, and then we thought, wow, do we need to get a car of a similar size than before? Because then we in along that time, Ayako's dad had the situation where they were going to go to visit his family and his extended family, and then he has a compact car, and so then they just rented a bigger car for the day. And then we thought, wow, maybe that makes more sense. And it really made us pause for a real long time about what was the right move to do. And maybe we didn't even need such a new car. I mean, we got a used car anyway, but maybe not such a more recent car. But then I think that in the end, we all of the factors, despite I forget if I showed you, but I even ended up making maybe we can put this in a thumbnail. I don't have it on hand right now, but I ended up making um, a bar graph out of crayons to quantify um, the different features and that we were thinking about either compact car or the current size, and then the different types of cars that the different makers of cars that we were considering, and and I did it and did a little presentation for Ayako, and hoping to kind of sway her toward the car that I was feeling the happiest about. Um, but which we didn't choose in the end. But the funny thing is that when I looked back at the bar graph, and I was, to be honest, I was kind of trying to sway things toward my choice. Um, the car that we actually chose was the one that when I looked at the bar graph again, it kind of had the highest average of everything.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And so yeah, like that is a really big choice. And we were really glad. Probably car buying here is way different than in the US. And so we're really glad that they did give us that much time to choose and think things over. Because I think that there can be a lot of pressure. And I know that car salespeople in the US, they like to kind of try to sway you, maybe intentionally or maybe a little bit with some tactics, like they'll say, oh, that family that just left, they're actually looking at the same car that you're thinking of, whether that's accurate or not. It instantly, kind of like you were saying, the panic sets in. Oh, I really want this car now. It really ramps up how much you want something, just knowing that. And or this car could be gone. Wow, if I don't get it, um but having a chance, yeah, to make a big decision, having time, I think that's the best thing. And it's funny how that worked out so well for us in the terms of getting this car, which we both really like and are really glad that we chose the one that we chose.
Barney, that's so creative. I love how you visually represented the differences
Yes.
with the different colored, with the crayon colored, bar graph. So that's
Right.
fantastic. I think there's something to that, like because data tells a story, and it's hard sometimes if you just see a big paragraph of text, but if you can visually quickly get a
Mm.
snapshot of what are the differences. Wasn't there one that you were looking at one point that was orange? Do I have that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yep. That's the one that I wanted.
That's the one that you wanted. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
The price was just right and the features were great, but yes, as my wife said, as I always said, it's orange.
It's orange. Orange, you gonna like it? I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know. She didn't. I boy, I maybe knock knock. Maybe that one would have done it. Be the rewind
Oh,
machine. Yeah.
oh my. Well, I like that though, that some decisions we have to think creatively, and whether it's a bar graph or sometimes people will do a pros and cons list. I think that's another common
Oh yeah.
approach is
Yeah.
like, what is really driving my desire for this outcome or this particular product or thing? And then
Hmm.
what are the downsides of that?
Yeah.
Economists talk about opportunity costs. Like if you go this route, what will you be giving up instead that you could put somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So um, one thing that we haven't mentioned yet directly, but I think probably is a relevant factor for our financial decisions would be the faith dimension, because oftentimes we will bring that in when we're bringing up topics, since both you and I are Christians, that we're believers, followers of Jesus, that we view our money not just as something that's meant to benefit us or for us just to enjoy, but also something that is to further the work of the kingdom of God and to bless other people. And when I think about um, like I guess the closest thing that we've come to so far in talking about this is when you talked about buying things for other people. When I think about how I
Yeah.
use my funds, sometimes I have to also step back and say, like, where am I seeking to use these funds to bless other people, or how is are some of these funds that we're so blessed to have access to, um,
Yeah.
being used for ministry work. And so, um, a lot of Christians will tithe a certain amount of their money to their local church to be used to for initiatives, outreach, and events to help others. And I think that's a great practice. Um, Sometimes finances come to play in terms of helping someone else who has a unique financial challenge. Maybe um, their furnace has gone bad, and they
Mm-hmm.
reach out to the community and say, oh, I could use help. And sometimes anonymously, or if you have a good relationship, there's ways to come alongside somebody. Sometimes though, purchases that we're going to make relate to something that has something to do with faith. Like this might seem like an obscure example, but each week when I'm working on sermons or when I'm getting ready
Yeah.
for Bible studies, I use a Bible software program. And there are a lot of free programs like that on the internet, but some of them are a little bit more expensive because they have printed resources that are high quality and have a lot of recent research related to them. And so recently, one of the software programs that I really use a lot that I find really helpful, Logos Bible software, went from a model where you purchase individual resources
Mm-hmm.
primarily in like packages now to more of a subscription model. You can still buy individual resources, but the instead of every so many years them coming out with another numbered edition like Logos
Mm-hmm.
8 or 9 or 10, now
Uh-huh.
they're just going to, you subscribe monthly or you pay a yearly subscription, and then with that subscription you'll get all the new updates over time. And when I was looking at some of the things that they're offering in the recent version, I thought actually those would really help me in getting ready and
Oh
preparing.
yeah.
And so I talked with our finance people at our church, and I thought about it for about a month and prayed about it, and like thought these things would be worth investing in for the benefit it would give, and that faith was involved in that decision. And so I guess maybe my question is, before we close, Barney, in your own view, like how could one think about their faith in relation to their financial decisions? And does that play a role for you? And like, what could that look like? Maybe just briefly before, I
Yeah.
know it's a big topic,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And I think that what you mentioned earlier about how can my money be used to help other people, um, then I think if we think about that, or when we have the chance to think about like the money that we're spending, or the money that we have, and then like in some cases like projects with Mennonite Central Committee, or other projects around the world, where you see wow, just that much is all that they need for clean water, or just that much amount of money would give like these sanitation kits, or help feed people. Then when you are able to think about your finances in that way, then I think that it really helps us to think about how blessed we really are, where we are in a lot of cases. And then I think that really helps us put a check in when we think about other people in other countries and their situations on It really helps us to clearly see needs and wants, and then also, like you say, the money that we are willingly and ready to give, the church and God's ministry, and yeah, I think probably you've had the same experience that after tithing and whatnot, you've never felt like you've had a month where, oh boy, I wish I hadn't spent that 10, given away that 10%. Oh man, I really needed that. I don't think we've ever really had that situation. And that just speaks to more than just our personal stewardship, but how our gifts are being used and blessing others, and in a way we get blessed by them as well. um, knowing the good that we've done, and then also just from God's grace too, I think. And yeah, it when when you tell people about that and challenge people or suggest other people to try it, I think that they see that it really is in perspective, that it really is such a valuable thing and a great um, expression of faith, since stewardship and being good stewards is mentioned so clearly in the Bible as well.
Barney, that is so well said. Yeah, I really appreciate your perspective on that. And I will just turn it over to you for the closing of our show. So,
Yeah, we are so glad that you came with us on this journey today and looked at this interesting topic of purchases and spending habits and being good stewards. And we hope that it left you that you're able to leave today's episode with some thoughts or things to think about in your own experience as well. And so we are so glad that you were listening along or watching along with us. And for the Two World Podcast, I am Barney with Jacob, and we hope that you, as we are looking forward to the next episode. And we will see you all then.